In case you weren't here last week, we are in a series on the book of Hebrews, and the part of Hebrews that we are in, I personally find incredibly agitating. The stuff that we're talking about, the message in this section, it chafes with the upbringing I had. It chafes with the teaching that I was raised in, and it forces me to re-examine my thoughts about salvation and Jesus and all that kind of stuff, and it's agitating, but I love it that way. That's why we're here. That's why I keep reading the Bible. Because I want to know what it says. I don't want to live a life that's believing in a salvation that I want it to be. I want to believe in a salvation that actually is. And I think our temptation is to choose different favorite passages about salvation and Jesus and be like, oh, these ones I love, and I'm going to base my thoughts on these passages. And then there's some that are irritating or agitating, and we're like, oh, man, I'm just not going to study that as much. And I'm going to highlight these passages. Well, I don't want to do that. We want to be a Bible church. We want to be a Bible church that looks at all of the passages and believes it all, because we want a full, complete understanding of our salvation in the gospel, not just a partial understanding. So this study is great for me, and if it agitates you, well, I hope that you're appreciating that what we really are doing is looking again at the Bible, and sometimes we're looking a little bit deeper than we tend to, and it brings up a few extra layers and things. Now, last week, I referenced one of the top 20 most irritating verses in all of the Bible for me personally. I think it might be in the top 10, but there's quite a few in Revelation that I find irritating. And so I've been generous with myself, and I've put it in the top 20. Now, I didn't quote it. I didn't put it on the screen. I just kind of casually referenced it out loud. But I want to go back to that. But before I go back to it, I want to set it up a little bit, because it's from Paul. Paul the Apostle, right? Paul, this guy who writes all about our salvation in all these books, Ephesians and Romans, and says all this fantastic stuff about our salvation. He writes an amazing verse, one of my favorite salvation verses, in Ephesians chapter 2. And he says, you are saved by grace through faith. This is not from yourselves. It's God's gift, not from works, so that no one can boast. Okay, that's Paul. He's writing that down. I read that, it's clear. By grace, through faith, not by works. Okay, and this Paul, he was kind of a big deal, right? He writer or influencer of many of the New Testament books. He's planted churches all through modern-day Turkey and Macedonia and Asia Minor and just that whole region. He suffers so many times for the gospel, being drug out of cities or stoned or whatever. It suffers so much. And this Paul, who writes that verse, you are saved by grace through faith, also writes what I find to be one of the most freaky verses in all the Bible, especially considering the source. He writes in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, he says, I discipline my body and bring it under strict control, so that after preaching to others, I myself will not be disqualified. I myself will not be disqualified. Is that even possible for Paul? Is that even something that he's thinking about? That there's a reality that he needs to keep going so that he's not disqualified. You see, discipline. I discipline my body. I under strict control so that I won't be disciplined? No, disqualified. It's a pretty freaky word. Now, friends, we're studying the book of Hebrews, and this idea of perseverance comes up a lot. Last week, we talked about the doctrine of perseverance, or at least we started to lay out the theology behind perseverance and what salvation and perseverance and how those kind of work together. But it's about this need to keep going, to give your life to Jesus and keep going until the end. That's not just the book of Hebrews. We saw that also in the book of Jude. We also see it in Paul. We also see it throughout the teachings of Jesus. It's a very common message, but it's also a very scary message. I guess you also see it in the book of Revelation, everywhere in the book of Revelation. So on the one hand, you have this Paul who has a supreme confidence. He uses the words like seal and guarantee, and a strong confidence in the certainty of salvation. To be absent from the body is to be present from the Lord. He's very confident, and then at the same time, he's diligent. He's trying to be diligent, so he does not disqualify. He has confidence and diligence. And actually, you can see that his diligence contributes to his confidence. And back and forth. If you run to the end, you'll be saved, but you need that confidence and diligence together. So that's kind of where we've been at in our study thus far. We're in section 2 of 5 in the book of Hebrews. There's 5 larger theological sections, and each one of these sections tends to have at least 2 of 3 items in it. One of them is a comparison. So section 1, Jesus is better than the angels. And section 2, Jesus is better than Moses. All right? And then in each section, we tend to see a warning. Last week, watch out. Watch out so that you don't lose what you've received. That was a hard message, that warning. And then the third bit is a zooming in to one aspect of the gospel, an amazing aspect of our salvation. See, the author of Hebrews is trying to awaken a people, trying to get a people out of apathy, out of casual Christianity, out of just coasting through their faith. And he's trying to get them back on fire again. And how does he do that? Well, he celebrates how amazing Jesus is. He celebrates how amazing the gospel is. And then he just tries to scare I can't use the right words, to scare people, to re-examine and take seriously what's happening. I got stuck there. That's all right. So part of the work is the wow, but part of it's a holy fear, establishing a holy fear with people. So last week, comparison, the warning, and now we're going to zoom in. But the thing is, if we zoom in today on this aspect of the gospel, it continues to be warning saturated. The whole warning from Moses carries all the way through this whole section. And so we're going to see this warning even a little bit today. But let's look at it. If you have your Bibles, turn with me to Hebrews chapter 4. If you don't, no big deal. The words are on the screen. The words are on the screen. I'm just going to read the majority of the passage here in Hebrews chapter 4, and then we'll make a few observations. It begins like this, and we ended with this verse last time. It says, therefore, while the promise to enter God's rest remains, referring to heaven and paradise, his rest remains, let us fear that none of you should miss it. That's what it actually says. Be afraid that none of us should miss this. For we also have received the good news just as they did, but the message they heard did not benefit them since they were not united with those who heard it in faith. For we who have believed enter the rest. In keeping with what he has said, God's saying, so I swore in my anger, they will not enter my rest. And yet his works have been finished since the foundation of the world. For somewhere he has spoken about the seventh day in this way, and on the seventh day God rested from all his works. Again, in that passage he says, they will never enter my rest, since it remains for some to enter it. And those who formerly received the good news did not enter because of disobedience. Again, God, specifies a certain day, today, or am I going to just continue to justify this? It's not that bad. It's a gray area. And I just want to encourage you in those moments, just like Jesus says, dying to yourself. And it feels like dying to yourself. I encourage you to go for it. It is always worth it. It feels horrible when you're making that decision sometimes to choose the way of highest holiness. There's a tearing, there's a ripping, and it hurts. I get it. But please, hear me. It's worth it. Make every effort. Make every effort. And choose that highest way of holiness. Anyways, that was just for fun. 4 aspects of making every effort. The first one we see in verse 2. In verse 2, it says this. It says, for We also have received the good news just as they did, but the message they heard did not benefit them, since they were not united with those who heard it in faith. Okay? The key word is faith. Faith. How does that fit with you and your upbringing? Faith and make every effort. One aspect of making every effort is faith. Those two go together, and it's a good check to see how biblical your understanding of faith is. There's lots of thoughts about what faith is, but the biblical understanding is not merely a faith in your head. If you think of faith as just something in your head, that's not biblical faith. Let me explain it this way. I absolutely hate high ropes courses. I hate them. Okay, they are traumatic. They're not fun. So back in the day, I remember the first time I go to a high ropes course, I was working with 11 and 12-year-olds. Okay, for this church, and so I got this large group of 11, 12-year-olds, and I was in a cluster, I guess, of 11 and 12-year-old boys, and we're going through this high ropes course, and I remember this one where it was, okay, you had to climb up this stupid tree, right? So there you are, and there's like a ladder-ish kind of thing. I guess it's a ladder. It didn't seem like a ladder. And I climb up way too high in the air, right? And you're climbing up there, and then you get out onto a very tiny platform, right? You get out on this platform, and then they want you to let go of the tree, right? And they want you to walk out to the edge of the platform, okay? Now, this is all pretty tense, but then at the same time, I've got a whole gathering of 11 and 12-year-old prepubescent boys taunting me with the words, "You're not a real man." I was like, oh, geez, I'm not. Right, the ironies. So there I am, and standing up there, and I'm just thinking about the twisted designer who thought this was a good idea. And they have out there, dangling out of reach, several feet away, a trapeze bar hanging out there. Okay? And you're supposed to leap off and grab on to this trapeze bar. Okay? And I just remember standing there, getting taunted and thinking, okay, how's your faith in this whole rope harness thing going on? Okay? It is not good. How safe do you feel right now, Brian? Not safe. I don't feel safe at all, okay? I felt safe when I was on the ground. When I was on the ground and I looked up, I thought, hey, this will be a good idea. Again, I've matured since then. And the harness, I've got a harness on check, and I've got this blue springy ropey thing tied onto me. It's all there and it's all working, and I thought it was going to be safe when I was there, but now I'm on this platform, I'm standing at the edge, and I'm looking out at that thing, and I'm thinking, am I going to spring off here and grab onto that and trust the rope? In my brain, I have faith that the rope will hold me, but that faith is worthless unless I jump. Faith jumps. Real faith jumps. They don't just say they've got it. They just don't think they've got it when they're safe on the ground. They just don't think in theory, it's not in theory. Real faith jumps. It acts. It goes for it. You can tell because you can see it. If I climb down the tree, I can't say I totally trusted the rope. I just had another idea. I don't know whatever that was about, but no. So that's what I did. I leaped off, and I grabbed onto it, and I got it. And I was so happy. And then I heard those stupid words, "Now let go." It's like, man, what a joy. Anyways, real faith jumps. Faith trusts what it believes, and it jumps. There is action, there is behavior, there is works behind real faith. Okay, when the Bible talks about faith in Jesus, faith that saves you, it's not talking about the faith in your brain, it's talking about a faith that acts on what it believes. It trusts what it believes and it lives like it. Now, in the beginning, I referred to a verse from Paul in Ephesians chapter 2. And it said, it is by grace that you are saved through faith, not by works, it eventually says. It says, by grace you are saved through faith, not by works. And so the temptation is to be thinking in terms of faith is here, okay, or maybe here, it's in my head, and then works are over here. They're in my hands. They're in my hands. And according to Ephesians 2, some people might want to think, well, all that matters is that I have faith in my head, and anything that I do is worthless. There's no point, but Ephesians chapter 2 is not saying it is worthless to do anything with your faith. It's talking about how you need faith, but you need biblical faith. And biblical faith isn't in your head, okay? Biblical faith is combined with works. Faith makes every effort. Biblical faith makes every effort. Works without faith, worthless. But also faith without works, also worthless. Also worthless. I'm getting this. James chapter 2 exudes this teaching several times in several clear ways. James 2:26 says, for just as the body without the spirit is dead, so also faith without works is dead. There's no biblical saving faith without works. You don't have it. Okay? That's the whole section. Real faith jumps. Real faith works. Real faith is seen by what we do. Now, all that to say, the words make every effort and faith, they have to be combined. They have to be combined. Okay, let's keep going. That's the first aspect of making every effort. Making it faith. Okay? The second aspect is down in verse 10. In verse 10, it says, for the person who has entered his rest has rested from his own works, just as God did from his. And now this is a zooming into part of this incredible aspect of the gospel of our salvation, that rest is coming. There is future rest from works. That's the second aspect of making every effort. Make every effort because there is future rest from works. Are you feeling burned out? There's rest. There's future rest coming. Are you feeling tired and weary? There's future rest coming. That's part of the glorious good news of the gospel. Are you feeling overwhelmed? Are you feeling overwhelmed by life? Are you feeling overwhelmed by life and the decisions that are making and the obstacles in front of your path and the challenges in the days ahead? You're not sure you can make it. Okay, keep going. Rest is coming. Maybe you're discouraged. Maybe you're feeling overcome by Saul. I just couldn't beat him. And so it was championship time, and there at the final track meet is Larry Royce. Larry Royce is a big man with a loud voice, a high school track coach. He didn't have to yell to catch everyone's attention out on the whole athletics field. I mean, the whole track. He's just one of those huge guys. And he's there scouting his future high school incoming freshman, okay? So it's kind of a big deal. And I remember just getting there and just being like, hey, this is it. This is my last chance. And getting down into the blocks and just when you're that close, I don't know if you've ever raced sprints or whatever, and you have to get down the blocks, and you're just close to the track, and you can just smell. You can just smell the rubber of the track, and your body's just tense. You've been stretched like this is a race, and you're just so amped up, ready to go, and worried, like wondering how it's going to go for days. You've been thinking about this, dreaming about this. You get down into the blocks, and you're ready to go, and then the gun sounds, and you take off. Now, at 13 years old, you're not yet fully well, I wasn't fully grown at 13 years old. And so 400 meters is brutally challenging. It's quite long. It's supposed to be a sprint. It's supposed to be. But at 13, it's pretty difficult to go that far, to sprint that far. And so we tear out of the blocks. Now, Abel was in the fourth lane, and I was in lane 3. He was first seed, and I was second seed. And so we tear off. Now, what I know about this race, if I had any chance to beat Abel, I have to catch him in the second corner. You have a staggered start. You stay in your lane the whole time. I've got to catch him in that second corner or I have no chance. Okay? So they're just powering along. And in that second corner is when all energy drains out of the body. Okay? And so you turn in that corner and I'm just powering along, just giving it all effort. I'm just running as hard as, okay. Yeah, I won. And it was great. And all that kind of stuff. I shattered my best time by 3 seconds. It's just one of my moments. You know, everybody's got those moments. It's one of my moments. There we go. So, yeah, thank you. So I ran out, which that's not the point of the story, but I'm going to make it again. So I finished the race, and then I remember the exhaustion. I remember vomiting at the pole vault mat. I remember the dizziness. I remember there's not enough oxygen in the world. You know, I just couldn't get air, and I just completely, the specs and the eyes, I just remember being just completely exhausted. I have no idea how did I pushed myself at 13 years old to dig deeper than I'd ever been able to dig before, and to run in such a way that I hadn't been able to run before, and it was difficult, and it was challenging, and it was costly, but there was Larry Royce. And he's like, oh, I was excited to have you on the high school track team. You know, that praise from Larry Royce. There's the receiving of the first prize award, which I remember receiving that as well. Pretty amazing, but I guess the thing is, that was a long time ago. I do not, in case, I mean, you're probably thinking I probably still do that. No, I don't actually race like that. I don't run 400 meters pretty much ever. So I don't do that. I consider this a period of rest where I'm never planning on racing like that again. But I did once. When the time was there, I ran. And although I don't have to do that now, when the time was there, I did. And I went for it, and I have that victory. I have that victory. I have that reward. And it does in some ways remind me of the promise of heaven. Running in such a way now is our race, and running in such a way to win. And instead of Larry Royce, please don't be Larry Royce, be Jesus. And Jesus saying, come enter into your master's happiness and share in his reward. Enter into this rest. Now is the time to push ourselves. But that rest is coming. And when that rest comes, you're going to be glad you did. You have that reward, that crown from Jesus, and that victory that lasts for eternity. That rest is coming. I just want to encourage you, whatever strength you have, make every effort. Continue to make every effort. If you have a lot of strength, much strength, some of you might, some of you do, well then much is required. If you have just a little strength, little required. Sometimes, Paul, sometimes we see in the Bible, run in such a way as to win, Paul. Other times, like in Revelation, church, I know you're so weak. I know you've been suffering. I know you've been struggling along. Just hold on. I'm coming soon. Just hold on. It's not like dominate your city for Jesus. It's just like, just hold on until I get there. It's like, depending on where you're at, much required, little required. We all have different capacity right now. And I know that I'm saying these words, make every effort, but it's not about how much effort I put into it. It's what are you doing with what you've got? Thinking of the parable of the talents, thinking of the other parables of Jesus. What do you do with what you've got? This verse says one more thing, though, at the end of it. Verse 11, it says, make every effort to enter that rest so that no one will fall into the same pattern of disobedience. The first half is about effort. The second half is about disobedience. What happens if you don't make every effort? If you don't make every effort, then the result is disobedience. So you have effort versus disobedience. That's the third aspect of making every effort. Without it, there's disobedience. Saying no to sin is part of the effort. Saying no to sin, saying no to compromise, saying no to temptation. That's part of the effort. Again, not make some effort. Some effort looks like, well, I've got a few behaviors they're kind of gray areas. I think I'm all right with them. There's a few things I like to do in my social time that's kind of a gray area. It's not, okay, it's not the highest of highest, holiest of things. It's not a holy, I don't think it's kind of a gray area, but it's all right. Some effort says, there's things on my computer that, I think you're fine. Compromise. Every effort says no gray areas. I am going to run after Jesus with all of my greatest effort to run in the highest holy way with his help and with his strength. No compromise, effort, no gray areas. Again, back to the passage I referenced. That's a totally different word. I referenced earlier in 1 Corinthians 9. Paul again, the larger version of the freaky verse, the larger version is, don't you know that runners in a stadium all race, but only one receives the prize? Run in such a way as to win the prize. Now, everyone who competes exercises self-control in everything. However, they do it to receive a crown that will fade away, but we a crown that will never fade away. Therefore, I do not run like one who runs aimlessly or box like one beating the air. Instead, I discipline, here's our verse, I discipline my body and bring it under strict control so that after preaching to others, I myself will not be disqualified. There's those words, self-control, discipline, strict control so that I won't be disqualified, making every effort. Finally, the last of the aspects regarding this call to make every effort, we see down in verse 12. Verse 12 and 13. And verse 12 and 13 reads this. It says, for the word of God is living and effective, or active maybe your version says, living and effective, and sharper than any double-edged sword, penetrating as far as the separation of soul and spirit, joints and marrow. It is able to judge the ideas and thoughts of the heart. That's the living word of God right there. No creature is hidden from him, but all things are naked and exposed to the eyes of him to whom we must give an account. Our God is the entirely perceptive judge. The entire, and by that I mean motive. Hear you saying is that this is so much hinging on my work and my efforts. Can you remind me again how this all fits with Jesus? How does this all fit with Jesus and his work? Because I'm hearing a lot about my work and my effort. Where does the Jesus thing fit back in? Okay, a good question. I'll explain that right now. Here's a picture. Here is a picture. Right? You know this guy, right? All right, Popeye. You grew up with this Popeye, right? Yeah, okay. I wasn't sure this morning if this was a New World, Old World thing. Okay, Popeye. What do you notice about this guy? Right. He has gargantuan forearms. Have you ever noticed how extremely massive his forearms are? This is Popeye the sailor man. Gargantuan. Look at those beasties. I mean, they're huge. They're huge. All right? Why does he have huge forearms? Why? Well, he's a sailor man. Now, in case your memory isn't all that great, it's true that he has a little tiny sailboat. It's true that sometimes you see him in a little tiny rowboat. But mostly he's famous for having a different boat, a motorized boat. And in case you've forgotten about what it looks like, there's a picture of his boat named after Olive, right? What a memory there, right? But the thing about his boat is it's a motorized boat. It's got a motor. It's got a single smokestack in it. That's his boat, okay? So why, if he has a motorized boat, does Popeye have such gargantuan forearms? He's a sailor man. He's not like an Olympic swimmer or something. He's a sailor man on a motorized boat. Well, if you're an old-time sailor man, there's lots of work to be done. Even on a motorized boat, there's storms to navigate. There's ropes to tie things down. There's thugs. Now, in the morning, I said, like, Bruno, but actually the guy's name was Bluto, right? Like Bluto. How embarrassing. I totally messed that up. Like Bluto trying to, practice thuggery on him or whatever. But being a sailor man was a whole bunch of hard work. But for Popeye, it doesn't begin with the hard work. It begins with his boat, right? It begins with no boat. All the work he does, all the effort, all the works, it doesn't matter. It all first begins with the boat. The boat is what floats. The boat is what floats over the sea. The boat is not powered by Popeye. It's powered by a motor. He doesn't have to row everywhere. He works hard, but he didn't have to work hard at keeping the boat afloat, and he didn't have to work hard to power the boat to his destination. That's not what he had to work hard on. He didn't work hard on keeping the boat afloat or propelling the boat it was all about the boat keeping him from sinking. It was all the boat propelling him to his home. The boat was propelling him home. In this life, Jesus and salvation are like the boat. You aren't getting anywhere close to rest. You aren't getting anywhere close to home. You're not getting anywhere where you want to be, close to heaven, without the boat. You need the boat, and the boat can take you home. He can take you to rest, but there's work to be done as well. There's effort to be done. There's ropes to be dealt with. There's cargo to deal with. There's storms to navigate. There's thugs to fend off. And you've got to hold on in the rough times, and you got to keep going through the tumultuous seas and the difficult seasons, through all the challenging. And if you keep going, though, you will certainly get home. If you keep going. If you keep going, the motor will power you home. The boat will keep you afloat if you keep going, and you will get home. And then, when you get home, through all the adversities, through all the challenges, you get to have rest. And you get to share in your master's happiness. Now, some of people think of salvation as if there's the boat, and then they are cargo. They think that they're cargo. They just need to get on the boat, and then when they get there, Jesus will pull them off the boat and say, "Hello, friend." Just welcome them home. They don't have to do anything. They just have to be uploaded in paradise. You are not like cargo. You're like Popeye. You're not like cargo. You're not like cargo. Doesn't fight when the storm comes along, and the cargo doesn't fight when the thugs come along. When the adversary comes along, and if it doesn't fight, it gets stolen away. When the rough seas and the rocky seas, when things are all messed up, sometimes cargo falls overboard. It doesn't even fight. It's like, oh man, right? But we're not cargo. We're not pacifists in the life of Jesus. We're like sailors, and there's work to be done. There's battles to be fought. There's spiritual battles to be fought. There's work to be done. There's storms to hold on through. There's tumultuous times where you really have to hold on with all of your might to your rock, to your Savior, to your Jesus. And you've got to hold on through the challenge to be endured, but just keep going. Just stay on the boat. The boat has a motor, and if you stay on the boat, you will get home. You will get home. The boat will get you home. But you got to think of yourself like Popeye and not like cargo. Right? If you don't know Jesus, you need Jesus. You ain't getting to rest. You're not getting to rest without that Savior. to bring you home. There is future rest. That's the offer. And just like the passage said, I encourage you today, as long as it's called today, to say yes and enter that rest, to give your life to Jesus, to dedicate your life to being all about Jesus and Jesus' kingdom, and to be saved. If that's you, if you're here and you need to do that during the time of worship and prayer, there's going to be, just go up in the balcony, give your life to Jesus and be saved. I've got 3 challenges for us today. Challenge number 1, if there's an area you feel God is asking you to do something about, even if it's very difficult for you to do it. Make the change. It's always worth it. Is there stuff you need to delete? Delete it. If there's stuff you need to destroy, destroy it. If there's behaviors you need to stop, stop. Make every effort. Number 2, if you're feeling burned out, ask someone to pray for you for refreshing today. I mean, we have prayer ministry. You can do that just right there. Number 3, what is one good thing you do because of Jesus? Just recheck the purity of your motives and maybe recalibrate your motives if you need to do that. Okay, just do it. A motives check.
Hello, and thank you for watching our service here at Rehope. My name's Adam, and I'm on the pastoral care team. So, every Sunday, we invite people in the congregation to come up and receive some prayer ministry, and we want to actually extend that offer out to you guys who are watching. So, if you ever want to come and receive prayer ministry from us, just send us an email. If you get in touch with Hannah, who is our pastoral admin, her email address is hannah@rehope.co.uk. Okay, thank you very much, and God bless.